Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us from what I'm sure will be a thought-provoking and hope-filled conversation. While it's usually true that life doesn't turn out the way we thought it would, that is definitely the case for Chris Nahi. As a teenager, he was offered the opportunity to leave his home in Northland to play rugby league in Australia. Within a few years, he was living the dream on the Gold Coast, being paid to play a sport that he loved. Money, fame, popularity, what more could a guy want? Just a few years later, however, the dream was a nightmare. A downward spiral of drugs, crime and self-abuse led to prison and despair and left Chris broken and desperate, without hope. But the great news is that this was not the end of his story. He joins us on the program. Chris, kia ora. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me here today.
Take us back to Northland, the early days. What was your childhood like growing up in Northland?
Yeah, I had a pretty good childhood growing up. I had a mother that loved us. Mm-hmm. I lived in a fatherless home though. Yeah. But we had a lot of love in our household. Playing sports was always...
Was faith part of your childhood experience?
No, faith wasn't a part of my childhood experience.
Mm. And you say your mum loved you, but your dad wasn't on the scene. How do you think that affected you as a young man?
Yeah. So I believe that there are traumas in our life that will stick with us throughout our life unless they're dealt with. And for me, it was growing up without a father in the home.
So what did you want to be as a young man? What were your dreams for the future? What did you want to be when you grew up, as it were, Chris?
I had a lot of dreams. Got to have a dream for a dream to come true, but my main dream was to one day play on the TV and make it into the Winfield Cup at the time.
And hey, for you, that dream came true. Playing sport in Northland, you got spotted by the right people as a teenager, being given the opportunity to travel to Australia. That must have seemed like a dream come true. Yeah,
that was awesome. I'd never been on a plane before. I flew into Australia, to Alice Springs. Mm-hmm. I'd heard of Alice Springs, but I'd never been there. And flying over the desert, I was actually wondering where am I being sent to? But it all worked out.
Now, you were quite successful in terms of rugby league, from the small team in Alice Springs, an opportunity to play professionally on the Gold Coast. You got quite a following, a bit of a fan favourite.
Yes, so I started out as a teenager and made multiple rep teams. Yep. Played under Steve Rogers in the Northern Territory side, and from there it led to the Gold Coast. Mm-hmm.
What was that like, I suppose? You know, you had achieved fame, you'd achieved success, you'd got popularity. Of course, there was good money with that at the time. How did you feel as a young man, well, in his prime and possibly at the peak of his career?
I was feeling really good. Mm-hmm. I just made some very bad choices. I decided to start partying harder than usual and harder than others.
Play hard, party hard, that was kind of the motto?
Play hard, party hard was the motto.
Yeah. Now, from there though, for I suppose occasional drugs in a social setting to something which had more of a grip on your life, can you name the time where that started to become more of a serious and addictive problem, Chris?
For me, it was about halfway through 1996.
Yeah. What happened specifically then?
Just out night clubbing, offered ecstasy, and that's where it all began.
Now, I suppose you can only go so far before this starts affecting what's happening on the field as well. Yeah. Now, you were a star performer for the team, but with the drugs, that was impacting your playing as well?
Yeah, it certainly was. We were training hard, playing hard, and partying hard. Yeah. And then in the off-season, carried on partying until we trained again. Mm. And that's where it really took its toll, because coming back to pre-season training and then trying to play again, it wasn't working out.
I mean, it's a very competitive sport. I mean, that's the nature of it. You're only as good as the next guy that comes along. Yeah. You ended up in a situation where you were dropped from the team. I mean, this is just a few years after you hit the heights, as it were. How did you feel at the time?
Yeah, my career was coming to the end. I wasn't happy with it. Depression started to kick in, and it was just all downhill from there.
With the depression, with that sort of loss of the dream, back to the drugs, self-medicating, trying to find that high again, feeling good about yourself, that sort of thing?
Yeah, trying to fill that void with drugs or whatever else I could. trying to feed my ego at the same time because having all that fame, just feeds your ego.
Yeah.
So I was trying to do that with drugs, and then I started selling drugs.
Was there a point in that process where you actually thought, hey, actually this may be out of control? Did you have a sense that it was heading downhill, or did you think, no, the drugs were telling you a different story, if you like?
Yeah, it's a false feeling of having control over your life.
Yeah.
There are times where you are left alone, and addiction is a lonely place. That's why you keep searching for more, and you just keep medicating yourself just to make yourself feel better. But in reality, it's all going downhill.
What was rock bottom for you, Chris?
Rock bottom for me was losing my house, relationship breakdown, losing my freedom, ending up in jail, and then finally I was homeless.
Certainly a significant fall from where you had been, and I mean, as we said at the beginning, this is not how you expected your life to turn out. Did you, in that rock bottom place, did you have hope that things could get better? What were you hoping for at that time?
I knew I was better than where I was, and there were times like I didn't believe in God or anything like that, but I'd still be praying.
Yeah.
And I felt that that God knows my heart, and He knew when to step in. And the times that I was praying just to get on, or to get more drugs, or to get somewhere else. So I was praying constantly, but I knew I was better than that, and I knew I'd even be down the beach, I'd be looking up at the sky like, is this all I am?
Yeah.
Like, I'd gone from up here down to here. But I just kept on finding the drugs, thinking that I could fill that void with the drug addiction.
You had a brother who was looking out for you. He was praying for you. He had hopes and dreams for who you could become. Is that right?
Yeah, my brother was always supportive of me. Always asking me to come to church.
Yeah.
So he's the pastor of Vibe Church on the Gold Coast. He started a rehabilitation program.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I got this feeling that he may have started it to help his brother.
But hey, at the time that wasn't something you were interested in?
No, I was not ready. Yeah.
One night in your prison cell, I understand that there was like a visual Bible or something like that. There was the chaplains had left something in the cells, and that's where you turned to in your prison cell one night?
Yeah, so I was going around the mountain for what I call 15 years. I'd been going around that mountain.
Yeah.
I'd been addicted to meth, to ice it was called in Australia.
Yep.
And it was one night in my jail cell, I was just broken down, I was paranoid, I was skinny as. I just cried out to God, and there was only that Bible in my jail cell, and I felt His voice inside me telling me to follow Him and He'll restore me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Was that different? Because for some people it's like, when I'm on drugs I hear voices, when I'm on drugs I hear a pull in a certain direction. That night in the prison cell, was that different than what you'd experienced before with the drugs?
Oh, definitely. It was like a spiritual revival. Like a peace came over me. Now I'm talking 15 years. I'm full-blown addiction.
Yeah.
And the chains of addiction had just fallen away that night in their jail cell.
I mean, that was quite dramatic. Doesn't always happen like that for people. We'll get into that in just a moment. But for you, it was an instant transformation that night in the jail cell?
Instant transformation. Coming up 7 years now.
That is,
praise the Lord.
That is amazing. What was the reaction from the others in the prison? I mean, you would have certainly had connections and networks and a reputation in the prison. What did they make of your transformation?
I didn't really care. I knew they were watching me.
Yeah.
I would come out with my Bible, the Word of the Day, and just go down to the card table, read the Word of the Day, open the Bible in Proverbs and Psalms because I was looking for some wisdom and some positive affirmations, and then I'd just write them down in my on my notebook. And each morning I'd come out, Word of the Day, read my notes, and look for more.
This was quite a significant change from the person that you were beforehand.
Yeah.
Out of prison and into rehab, as you say, your brother had founded this rehab facility in Australia.
Yeah.
But for you, the drugs had gone. There was no longer that addictive pull. What was the reason to say, look, the drugs may not be a stumbling block, but I'm going to go to rehab anyway? What was behind that choice, Chris?
So my decision to go to rehab was that I knew I couldn't get well in that environment that was making me sick.
Yep.
And when I left jail, I went to a friend's place and they were drinking and they were smoking meth. The chains had broken away from me.
Yep.
I had a sleep, and then I woke up in the morning, early hours of the morning. I told them I need to go to rehab. And I just wanted to put myself in a place where guys are on the same journey as me and learn more about this guy they call Jesus, because he is the answer. And that was the start of the journey.
So as much about discipleship and living in community, having some more positive people around you, that was part of it?
That was all part of it. Yeah. It was all new, and it's not easy. Change isn't easy. Diamonds aren't made in comfort, under pressure, and I was just ready for the challenge.
Exactly. Now, of course, back in New Zealand now, it's very much a bit of a prodigal story for you, coming home literally back to New Zealand where it all began, but also the journey back from the drugs, back to a more positive, hope-filled life. A bit of a prodigal son, Chris?
Yeah, definitely. I was in the rehab and immigration came looking for me.
Yep.
The old me would have gone on the run and gone back to what I knew. The new me was like, if God is for me, and who can be against me? So I just presented myself to the immigration office, got put into the immigration centre, went and found all the Christian brothers, started attending their church services, got sent back to New Zealand, and even when I came back, I was wondering what now? I've been prophesied over in church that I've been to Egypt, I've been through the fire, I'm not going back there, I'm going to go fishing for men. And when I came back, I connected with a friend of mine, Owen Pōmana, and we went on a bit of a hikoi around New Zealand.
Oh yeah, Owen,
Yeah, sharing our testimonies about being released from our addictions. And then it was then that I got the revelation that I need to start a program, because the pee epidemic here in New Zealand is terrible. And I contacted my brother and told him what I wanted to do, and he was more than happy to help me with the resources and getting the program started.
Your story reminds me a little bit about Joseph, who was sent to another country against his will, but God certainly had a purpose for him there. But if we could just talk to people who may also have prodigals in their life, Chris, somebody that they pray for regularly, somebody who has lost their way, found some dark places and a broken relationship with those they love and with God as well. What would you say to encourage people who have prodigals that they're praying for?
So for anyone that's got a family member that's in addiction, the best thing you can do for them, and it is a little bit harsh sometimes, is you got to show that tough love. You got to let them know that they are loved and that they need help. Even find some services that'll help them. Throw it in a text message, send it to your loved one, let them know, get to these services, get some help. We love you. Until you get the help, you can't come home, because you can't allow that dark cloud into your house to pollute the rest of your family. You actually got to show that tough love, and it took 15 years or 14 years before my family started doing that to me and not picking me up and don't give me money and don't give me a place to get bail to or whatever, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that need to help ourselves to get ourselves out of that hole.
Your brother was very much that person in your life, and saying, hey, when you're ready, bro, there's a rehab facility. But I suppose getting the balance right between offering hope but not being too preachy, because until we find the light, it doesn't seem attractive to us. Sometimes we can come in too hot with the Bible, do you think? Or
you can't bash them. You just got to share the love, provide them with services that they can get help with. Just keep on praying for them.
Back in New Zealand, and you've been running a Victory House program in Northland for a period of time. Just wanting to talk a little bit about that. Tell us about this program. How does it work, Chris?
So Victory House is a minimum of 12-month program for men. It's faith-based. It's also a working and activity program. So we do a holistic approach. We do courses, we do our own programs in-house, we take our guys out into community work. We feel that doing a program and a course for that long, because you need a minimum of 12 months, you can't change those mindsets straight away. It takes time, but in that time you need to be able to get them used to working as well, get the tools from all the counselling and the courses and all that as well, so that when they finish the program, they've got the tools to be assertive to people that try and approach them with the wrong intentions, as well as be ready to work, because there's no use in doing a program getting out and you can't even get a job.
Yeah.
You need to be ready.
No, very good indeed. For you, the chains of addiction were broken immediately. That's not the case for many, many people. And even sometimes after coming to faith are in that situation where they sometimes fall back into addiction. Yeah. Why is that? Why were you different, do you think, Chris?
I believe every case is different. Mm-hmm. Some take more than one attempt to get it right. I was just ready. I believe I was ready. Mm-hmm. When you're that low and you're that broken, when you cry out to God, He will answer you. Do
you think anybody can change, or are some people beyond hope, or are they just not ready?
Anyone can change. Mm-hmm. Whether it's drug addiction, emotional, childhood abuse, mental stuff going on for them, anyone can change. If you got the right services around you and you got the right aroha coming in towards you, you can change.
There may be people watching this who are trapped in some type of addiction. They may not be in a physical prison like you were, but they are enslaved by their habits and some of the destructive choices that they've made. What would you say to them to encourage them to move towards hope, to move towards help?
Yeah. I believe that you are who you hang around with.
Okay.
You need to find the right people that'll actually add to your life, people that'll lift you up and not push you down. Mm-hmm. Services, go online. Google's a great place. Punch in what's going on for you and just source those services.
As a young man, going back to this young man in Northland who had a dream, he had a hope, a plan for his life. In terms of what success looked like to you then, it was, being a football star in Australia, being on the TV. What's your dream now, Chris? What does success look like for you now? So
I run a program for men. Mm-hmm. Success for me now. We're building on my grandparents' land. I'm going to move my family back out there. My dream is to start helping youth as well. Mm-hmm. Catch them before they need the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, but still run the men's program as well. Mm-hmm. So I want to help youth, and I want to help the fathers as well.
Yeah. No, that is a wonderful dream. Yeah. Now, if you had the opportunity to chat to young Chris before he was taken off to Australia, what would you say to a teenage version of yourself, Chris?
I would tell him to just hang around positive people, chase your dreams. I'd let him know that addiction is broken dreams only come from addiction. Get to church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think he'd listen, young Chris, or did he have a bit of a mind of his own? Sometimes we need to learn the hard way.
Yeah. He was an angry child.
Yeah.
So all you can do is just give the advice and just hand it over to them.
What about the young man on the sports field, living the dream? You're at the pinnacle of your career. Were you in a space to hear that message of hope then? Or again, if you had the opportunity to talk to Chris, the sports star, would you be in a space to hear that?
I was caught up in the world then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it would have been good to see, like you look at the sportsmen now, when they get a try and they just start praising the Lord. And
yeah.
Yeah, it would have been awesome to be doing that.
Perhaps better mentors, better structures now than there used to be.
Yeah.
From your experiences then, do you think sometimes it may be easier to find God when we're desperate? That we need to come to the end of ourselves? It's easier to give yourself over to God when you've got nothing left to lose?
You're more likely to look for change and look for God when you're in that place of despair. You're at the bottom of the bottom of wherever you can be. Then it's possible to change. A lot of people will think that they can do it on their own when they're not rock bottom.
Yeah.
Even when they're halfway, they still think that they can do it themselves, and it takes a few years of going around the mountain. But yeah, when you're at rock bottom, that's when you're more likely to make that change.
Given all the brokenness that you went through, but you ended up finding God in the process.
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Oh, definitely. I wake up every morning and I thank Jesus for setting me free, for saving my life.
No, very good indeed. Now, I also know that people will be watching this at the moment, Chris, that are perhaps feeling a little bit disappointed with the way their life turned out. Perhaps not as dramatic as your story. In fact, probably not as dramatic, but just, I don't know if it's okay to say this. I know you've got a significant birthday coming up, one of those ones with a 0 on the end.
Yeah,
it's these sort of milestones in our life where we do a bit of a stock take. We look back and go, hey, maybe things haven't turned out the way that I hoped they would. Yeah. Maybe they haven't, maybe the dream that I had has never been realised. What would you say to encourage people that are in that space?
Well, I say to my guys in the program, I let them know that life begins at 40.
Yeah.
Which means that you look back at your first 40 and it hasn't worked out for you, and now it's time to make a change and try something different. Different isn't always easy, but if you've tried it your own way, maybe it's time to follow Jesus.
Yeah. No, that is super good indeed. Hey, you talked about a little bit about your dream with Victory House and with this becoming a bit more of a facility and an outreach to young people as well. For people that are watching this at the moment, perhaps they're in that space, perhaps they know somebody that's in that space. Is this, how do people engage with the process? Is there a waiting list? Do they need to be referred? What's the process for that one, Chris?
So the process is that we'll take referrals from anywhere, self-referrals, whānau referrals.
Yep.
But if they jump on our website, which is www.victoryhouse.co.au, there's contact numbers on there, and there's a referral process for here in New Zealand and in Australia, where there's a men's and women's program. And just,
your brother's still involved with that in Australia?
Yeah, my brother runs the church, and he's got guys that run the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For you, though, it was very much a case of it being the right time. Your brother put the offer out there many times, but you needed to be in that space where you were ready to accept change. How do people know when that is right? How do you know that somebody is right to be accepted into the program?
So I have a chat to them first, so they're on the same page, to let them know that we do church service, we do Bible studies every day, connect groups, we do work, we fundraise for the program to do normal things like go temp and bowling and movies and stuff.
Yep.
And then for a lot of the guys that I get, they come into the program to get out of jail, which is okay, that's a start, seeds planted. But when they're navigating their way through the program, they usually get a light bulb moment that, you know what, this is actually good for me. And that's what happens a lot.
Maybe they're starting off doing it because their probation officer said they should, or they're not wanting to disappoint their family again because that's been their pattern. But eventually they go, hey, I'm not just pretending to go along with this. This is good for me.
Well, with our program, there's no moving through the program unless we're seeing change.
Okay.
So if they're there to tick boxes, they're probably in the wrong program.
And hey, Chris, you're probably the best person to assess whether or not you're putting on a show. You would have done that for many years yourself.
Yeah. It's all lip service.
Yeah. Not everybody makes it. You are a wonderful trophy of grace. God has done some amazing things in your life. He's using your testimony to inspire and transform the lives of a new generation of men. It would be true even for the Victory House program that not everybody makes it. Sometimes people fall back.
So it's not an easy program.
Yeah.
And like you said, not everyone makes it. Some guys leave the program early. But what we hope for is that a seed is planted. Some come back, some don't come back, and they still do really well in the community. But it's all about planting that seed and giving them a little bit of hope.
It could have turned out very different for you, of course, with the situation that you were heading in terms of the drug addiction, with the criminality, the dealing, those sorts of things. That you made it to 50 in some ways is part of the miracle. A lot of people still trapped in that space.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. I've had friends that have been shot. I've had mates that have committed suicide. I've got a lot of mates that are in jail. So I'm just very fortunate to come out the other side. I still put positive stuff up on my page, and I've still got a lot of friends that are still in addiction that reach out now and then. And that's all I'm doing, just trying to give them a bit of hope, because a lot of them have seen me in my past, and they've seen how bad it was, and then they're amazed that at the changes that happened in my life.
That is such a powerful transformation. But I mean, again, we're talking about that. Hey, young Chris probably wouldn't have listened to wise Chris now. But what's been the response from the people that you used to party with to the way in which things have turned out for you?
Yeah, they're all really supportive. They just love watching what I put up on my page, because my old page was about my old behaviours, and the last 7 years it's just about the program and making changes. Back
in New Zealand now, is that home or what?
Yeah, New Zealand's home. I'm living in Whangarei, Mangakahia. The program's in town, and I'm getting ready to move into my grandparents' home, and with the family.
Very good stuff indeed. And hey, taking up some rugby league, that's part of your life. Growing back the power mullet from your glory days. Lots of good stuff happening in your life.
Yeah, I'm still playing. Playing for the Tangere Knights in Whangarei. God has been very good to me. The body still feels okay, so I'll just keep playing, and got the brothers praying before the game, after the game, so yeah.
No, very good. Hey, appreciate your story. Thank you so much for bringing this message of hope to us today, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing. If people wanted to find out more about the work of Victory House, victoryhouse.co.nz, a part of the Arise Church, is that correct?
Church.
Yeah, no, very good stuff indeed. Chris, kia ora, thank you so much for your time today. We very much appreciated it.
Thank you for having me, Andrew, and I'd just like to do a shout out for all those people that have supported our program in the past, Custom Cabins for their support to me and the guys in the program, and to the Rise family and our Vibe Care family in Australia. Thank you very much.
Chris, kia ora, thank you. And hey, thank you very much for being with us for what has been a fascinating and inspiring conversation. Of course, an encouragement to get together with other men that are figuring out the best way to do life with Jesus. You can find out more about what is happening both online and in your local area at promisekeepers.nz. That is promisekeepers.nz. Kia ora.